We are the hub for news, results, and CEO interviews focusing the junior commodities sector. We provide market analysis and perspective that will help position you for solid returns.
Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Market Mindset, where we touch on themes that we see as being going to be leading the way, especially in 2023. We're ending the year here the next couple of weeks. And we want to just kind of roll up this last couple of weeks, just reaffirming what we think is going to happen, and also this transition, the shift that's finally occurring.
Yeah, and we're going to dive into a pretty big topic here today, Andrew. It's something that has been really interesting to kind of follow. It is from COP15, and it's a move by kind of some of the richest countries in the world in a kind of alliance and strategy to make mining green, or make mining greener than it already is.
Yeah, so it's actually a funny title because it says rich countries announce alliance to make mineral mining green by the new scientist. It's a very odd way of reporting like rich countries. But anyways, It's the biodiversity summit. And you know what? It's obviously it's got its bent on it, but it's good because we need every aspect of science and of politics and media to help explain to people what's it going to take? Like, what does this really mean? Because most people get stuck on, they think, oh, well, we just need wind and we need solar, and then that's it. That's not, I mean, not only does that require a lot of mining, those two things on their own, just for the electric current, for the silver that you need for the solar panels, just the sheer amount of aluminum and iron for the giant windmills. This is important because we have an excellent video series coming out with John Highquay, who's from Stormcrow Capital, and he puts it very well in that he says we need to focus on surgically extracting these critical minerals and metals out of, say, Canada. And that's such a great imagery as well, to think we have the technology and the techniques to do this. Is mining environmentally friendly? Well, no. There's no amount of industry that's environmentally friendly, but it's minimally invasive in comparison. And I think that's what people have to come to terms with, is those that are really interested in making a shift, and that believe that the carbon is the issue, and that if we switch to electric, then this is the only way going. And even when we look at something like fusion, which we had great success, there was a leap forward there. I think it was Monday, that the announcement, Monday or Tuesday, with fusion. That's still, it's the meme of it's a decade off. It's not that close. There's still a lot more work to do, but it's significant what was accomplished.
Yeah, it is for sure. And as it continues to kind of move forward, and obviously you try to trend in advance, the one thing that I think is very encouraging about this is that, Canada, as much as you might disagree with the current government, at least Canada's kind of leading the way on this. Canada and the rest of the G7 have launched a stable mining alliance that's kind of heading up with in cooperation with the COP15 alliance as well. That the aim is essentially going to be to extend Canada's mining strategy, but also give Canada the ability to help and encourage other countries to adopt more environmentally high standards, more socially responsible standards. And as we've talked about before, if you want to be doing mining in a clean and green and kind of to the best standards and practices that you can, Canada's a great example for having those standards and that framework already in place. So I think that's a good move to have Canada kind of leading the way to set those standards globally and kind of get everyone on the same page. If you're going to do it, it's a good marker. It's a good structure to follow, I think.
Yes. Yeah. And I'll kind of say this because not to play future predictor, but we see Francois Philippe Champagne, who is he's a liberal. He's a minister of innovation, science, and industry since last year. Before that, he was the minister of foreign affairs. So we're not talking about small positions. He seems to be the one really driving this Canadian critical minerals strategy. And I think the way I read it, I think that's going to be not only a good power play, I think we're going to hear his name a lot more moving forward as this strategy develops. And if he becomes a real champion to this, I think we're going to see Canada really take a leading role in as it should in this new energy sector, in creating the wealth and the innovation and all of the materials that are needed. We have a real substantial opportunity here to do it correctly, to do it safely, to do it, within regulatory frameworks, and like John Highway puts it, surgically, to go in, extract what we need, take out, and then, like all of these projects that people don't really realize, they're fully bonded. I mean, they've got remediation plans. There's a whole step-by-step process that you have to go through with any of these mines that most people, when they hear about mining errors or anything, it's from a long time ago, and it's not the same anymore. It just simply isn't, or it's in foreign countries where you hear Congo all the time as being, we can't do this because of Congo. And I mean, it's not even an argument at this point. But what we wanted to focus on was this key development, not only in Canada, but also the implementation in the US of the IRA, or the Inflation Reduction Act, which I still have a hard time calling it that. But in any event, every time I read it, it does trigger me a little bit, which is silly. But in any event, there's a lot of spending obviously going on. It's $270 billion over 10 years, incremental tax incentives from this, to not only to corporations, but also to individuals to drive the sector. And there's actually a great image there, a chart where it shows how much more spending that's coming up to 2030 from the Congress. And all these things are all extra added benefits that I think are starting to show, our approach from years ago of, listen, this transition is happening. It's going to be painful, but here's where you need to position yourself. That seems to be coming to fruition right now, and we're starting to see it ramp up very quickly.
Yeah, and you talk about that kind of incremental growth and that increase, and what it's going to take, the estimated incentives for the energy sector from, if you go from 2021, that number's right around 16 billion. And it's going to be right around kind of that same number in 2022 when it's all said and done. But that number is going to jump to near 30 next year. By 2027, it's going to be up over 45, and by 2031, that number is going to be up over 55 billion in incentives for not necessarily for energy companies and people that are helping to meet these critical goals. So that's a huge incentive investment that's there to allow companies to kind of build off. And as we've talked about before, the ability is there for the U.S. government to not just spend that in the States, hence why, the Department of Defense has been looking at partnering with Canadian companies as well. They're able to spend that money outside of the U.S. as well.
Yes. And we like to read, I sign up for the Goldman Sachs reports that they come out with, and they are saying that they need about 1.8 trillion annual investment until 2050. That's Brian Singer. He's the global head of sustain within Goldman Sachs. So that's a significant amount of money, and they're going to do it. They're going to be putting money towards this. So once again, I know there's a lot of political strife and there's a lot of questions on both sides. It's getting spent. So there's an opportunity there to make some money. And the way I look at it is that we can diffuse some of this by saying, listen, we're still using oil and gas. We're going to, the best thing we could hope for in the short period of time is to convince, say, China and say Germany to stop using coal and to use natural gas. Why we're not shipping natural gas, and that's Germany had to go to Qatar to sign a 10-year natural gas pipeline deal is beyond me. Because if you want to scratch your head and wonder, well, why wouldn't Canada provide that? Canada could have, they came over here looking for solutions, and our prime minister turned them away. Now, Germany's not using natural gas. They just went to Qatar. So, but that's also what Canada had been doing for the past decade, which was not using Alberta, but buying from Saudi Arabia. So this is what has caused a lot of poor guidance or visibility for people to go, this strategy by our government makes no sense, and that would cause a lot of disconcernment and a lot of questioning. So if we can get people to get on side and say, listen, we're going to be using oil and gas. Can we cut it back a bit? Okay, sure. But why? Say, listen, if it takes out pollutants and makes the air a bit cleaner, if we could find a way to that, and let's take away all the political talk, would you be happy about trying to make things so we had cleaner air? I think most people would say, okay, yeah, what's it going to take? So I like to diffuse situations that way and just think, if there's a way we can do things a bit cleaner for the entire environment as far as pollution, not just carbon, because once we go down that path of looking at the nuanced specifics of we believe it's this, then you have both sides then focus on those little aspects and fight about it to the point of not doing anything, that we can start moving forward and look to go, we can have cleaner air. Okay, let's get on side just with that.
Yeah, because that's something that you would think everyone would be able to agree with and get on the same page about. And when you're not getting caught up in the nuances of the argument, you're able to sort of say, hey, let's tackle just some bigger goals and objectives that we can work through. That's where it becomes easier to get groups of people on side, from regardless of what kind of side of the aisle you're from. And I'll make a point here as well. And this is just Austin's opinion, so take this with a grain of salt. But you mentioned that it's a smart kind of political move for a guy like Francois Philippe Champagne to kind of be championing this. I think that there's an extra political layer to that as well. And you see a guy who's in the Liberal Party that may have a kind of vacuum in its leadership positioning as they move into the next election. 100%. He may be positioning himself as a guy who could fill into that, because I don't know if Trudeau's going to run again. He's starting to become such a polarized figure that it might be smarter for the Liberals to almost go forward without him. And I know that their kind of deputy leader, Christina Freeland, isn't overly well liked. She doesn't exactly poll well publicly. So there could be an opportunity for someone who can say, hey, look what I've done over this last period of time. Maybe I should be the one to step in and take the reins. So I think it's a smart move by him to get on side with this as well.
She's about as qualified as he is to be running anything. I mean, and he polls terribly. It's only because of the NDP support. But this is the awful thing with politics, is sometimes you're left with the worst because of just political gearing. But in any event, and I'm certainly not for a lot of liberal causes, especially the new liberal causes or progressive causes. But when I see someone who had a lot of roles, like Mr. Champagne, it would be interesting to see if we start to see a lot more of him very soon, because we need someone who understands how to run things. I mean, if you don't know how to run anything, if you can't run a small business, how are you expected to run a country and understand the nuance of it? And I mean, you don't have to look too far into both of their backgrounds to find out they don't have any core competency. And we need to have people with exceptional core competency, because, if we're talking about doing surgical like precision, we need to have people that understand the supply chain, understand engineering, understand what it takes to move a country, to get them and to pivot like this. And even if you don't personally like them, even if they may be gruff or they may not be the most likable, if they can get things done, that I think is more of something we need to see. So I wanted to bring up his name because I think we're going to see a lot more of it.
Well, and it's a move that they almost have to make as well. Like if I'm gonna put myself in a kind of liberal supporter, Liberal Party member headspace for a second, up until very recently, the Conservatives haven't offered much by the way of a realistic challenge. I think that's starting to change with the new leader that the Conservative Party has. So I think as the Liberals are going to have to look at this and say, okay, we can't just kind of coast like we have for the last couple of elections. We're going to have someone who seriously knows what they're doing, essentially. So it's going to be very interesting from a political perspective as well. But hey, when it's working to benefit the mining industry, and this guy's making a lot of moves that we've agreed with recently over the last few months and given him a lot of credit for the stuff that's been going on, it's a positive move for sure.
And I want to throw out there too that we're working on doing about like a synopsis summary of the Canadian Critical Minerals Strategy. And we're going to have that out as a report for people. And we're going to endeavor to get that done fairly quickly because we'd like to have that in before the end of the year, and also do a video just kind of walking through what that looks like and what that means. Because at the end of the day, we need everybody to understand what that means and to give people the other side of the story, because you're immediately going to hear from every leftist progressive that mining is terrible, it's evil, it's this and that, and because they don't know. They've just read articles in the paper. So how many people are in this space that have worked in the space, that understand the space, that are on say an environmental side? Almost none, if any. So you have to take everything with a grain of salt, and to understand sometimes you have to go through a little pain to have a maximum gain. And China is the best example of that. I mean, I would say, but that's something I covered in the China report that we have, if you'd like to download that. But we wanted to keep this one short and sweet, just to highlight both the Inflation Reduction Act, the critical mineral strategy. We've talked about the U.S. Department of Defense looking to Canada. Like, listen, it's happening. This is all starting to happen. And will it mean that all these junior companies are going to, rush, leap forward? No, there'll be a bit of a trickle down. It's going to take some time. But believe me, they're looking, we see memorandums of understanding from GM, from Ford. They're looking directly to miners to get these products that they need. That's going to continue to happen. And I think when people start to open their eyes, and even if we go sideways, Dr. Faber had said he sees a sideways market for some time. I think there could be a sideways market for some time, and the mining sector is so slow, so small, that could have such amazing growth and do so exceptionally well that it would barely affect the overall market. But for those of us in that sector, I think we're going to be quite happy over the next little while.
Yeah, I think for people who can position themselves strongly and follow these stories correctly, I think there's going to be a great opportunity there. And that's why people should make sure they're signed up to the website to get insights. If you're signed up to the website, you're going to be the first to get your hands on our report on the Canadian critical mineral strategy and everything else that we've put out over the last few years as well. So you get access to all that insight. Make sure you're signed up to the website there. You'll get all of our email blasts. And we're going to have a fun show next week, Andrew. We're going to have our year in review little meme dump that we'll do.
Oh boy.
Because for anyone who follows the show knows we like to do one of these every once in a while. So I'm looking forward to that one.
Oh,
and it'll be good.
If you've been wondering why we haven't been talking about FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried, if you've been wondering why we've been leaving some gold on the table, just wait till next Friday.
Yeah,
it's going to be a lot of fun.
Santa's coming with some presents next week. Let's put it that way.
It's coming early. And just to wrap things up, because it's of no surprise, we're going to end this up with Desert Mountain Energy. They put out a video yesterday, so the assembly of the plant. We'll get that running. I think it's just a minute-long video. So let's just let this run, and we'll wish everyone a happy Friday, a great weekend. And listen, there's not going to be a lot happening. We're not expecting tons of news over the next couple of weeks. Even the city of Vancouver here is slowing down dramatically, but it's a good time to be doing research, to being focused on what's your plans for 2023. And I mean, look at this. I'm once again, we got pulled back as far as timelines with DME, but this is going to be a story for next year. I really believe that this is the one. We've believed in this company right from the beginning, and they're so close now to actually having production. This is the assembly of the plant at Macaulay Field. Excellent. So we'll just wrap this up, and I want to thank everyone and have a great weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll echo those sentiments, and I'll just say as well with DME, getting to see a video put out like this of, hey, things are ready to go. It feels like it's been so long of pushing this boulder up the hill, and we're finally maybe at the top of that hill, and it's going to start rolling down and have that kind of snowball effect, which is really exciting.
Take care, everyone.
Awesome. Have a good weekend, everyone.